Kia ora everyone, and see us doc. My name is Fanni Fazakas, and I'm a senior lecturer at Teherengavaka, Victoria University of Wellington. And I'm also researching and investigating how real-time applications of motion capture and immersive storytelling can be used in edutainment and art practices with the aim to achieve measurable impact and a positive impact on society on the long run. I'm going to talk about this later, but before that, I would like to briefly mention that I'm also part of formerly collective, now production company called RUMEXR, and at RUMEXR we're focusing on real-time content creation for mostly virtual production and games for good. And we started out as an art collective. We were just creative people in their mid-20s gathering together because we all shared a passion for creating projects in between the intersection of arts, society, and technology. And our aim was to collaborate and work on these projects together in an international context. And I will cover three of our main projects what we created with this interdisciplinary international team. One is called the Spatial Sound Institute experimentation. So on the picture you can see the space of the Spatial Sound Institution, which is located in Budapest, but they also have different studios across Europe running under the name called 4D Sound. And here we gathered together with a contemporary dancer, Renata Vörös, and she's been researching a choreography technique where the space within the dancers are moving is extremely limited and gets even smaller and smaller. So in this experiment, in this performance, the dancer is surrounded by 4 transparent walls, and we are applying projection mapping. And anytime the dancer is moving in a certain direction, the sound source and also the visuals are reacting to it and moving into this particular space in time, real time. And from a technological point of view, we are using Riot gyro-sensitive sensors and Kinect sensors for capturing the movement of Renata, while we're also translating the data out from the skeleton points through open sound control to the 4D sound system, which then calculates the position of each sound source in the space according to the body parts. Let me show a quick video of it. Another experiment happened as part of my master degree, where people from the game and dance and ITP departments gathered together to create a real-time motion capture experience for the first time. And here in the space, you see that the performer has 3 different Venusian representations projected on the screen. And the audience input provides agency to move the story forward from embodiment to empowerment. But technically speaking, what actually happens is that the more the audience forces the performer to look into these mirrors you see on the upper right side of the screen, the more she's able to confront these representations, and each representations are a symbolic avatars of different mental health problems. Move to the next project. It's called RUMEXR. The premiere happened in the Interactive Corp lobby in New York. And within this real-time virtual reality performance, where you see the performer running on a treadmill, we were questioning the value we place on our physical form in a world where we are more likely to use identical digital avatars for social interactions. So let's just see a quick video of it. This was the first project where we used Unreal Engine, and we also created AI-driven avatars for the performers. So after scanning the performer using photogrammetry, then we created these identical avatars, which were moving along the environment in different spaces to compete with the actual performer. And you could either win or lose the competition. Lately, our focus shifted a little bit in terms of what kind of projects we are taking on now as a production company. And now that we are in our 30s and most of us also have kids at home, we find it really, really important that we work on projects which are dealing with some kind of environmental or social problem. And as for our own creation, our focus is on art for impact, I would say. We still have productions for virtual production backgrounds, but that's kind of the side projects. We recently partnered up with the World Wildlife Fund to create an augmented reality game within we teach younger kids on what they can do on a personal level to prevent climate change, and also to we were encouraging them to plant native trees and how to protect their environments in a playful way, and several other projects I'm gonna cover later. One of our main projects is called Missing 10 Hours VR. It's a multi-ending narrative piece about the Bystander Effect and different date rape drugs. It's a co-creative piece with many other survivors of drug-related abuse. And we are very, very happy that the immense amount of work, the 5 years of work that we poured into this project is finally getting recognized. And recently we were selected for the Best in Show in Siggraph, Los Angeles, People's Choice in Sydney, Siggraph, Best XR Interactive in Kaohsiung Film Festival in Taiwan, and DocEdge for Best International VR last year. Let me show you a quick teaser. All right. Before I jump right into the secret details behind the production and pre-production and the multi-output possibilities from Unreal Engine, where this project was created, I just would like to give a little warning that if at any point this conversation or this lecture I'm giving or this talk I'm giving is bringing up some uncomfortable thoughts, I would really recommend going onto our website where we listed relevant NGOs and 24/7 helplines helping if you need help. It's called missingtonhours.com, and you will see that the first button is saying I need help. Just click on it and then it will take you to the list of the help centers. So about Missing 10 Hours and how this story started. So back in my 20s, I was playing regularly at parties, and believe me, I've seen some dodgy situations in nightclubs and so forth. But I always had a kind of fake sense of safety that none of this would happen to me until it actually happened. So one night, me and my friend decided it was a Friday night, but we decided that we're not going to go out and party this time, but we're going to just grab a dinner in a nearby restaurant. So we met, we had dinner, and then we called our taxis to get home around 9 p.m.-ish. But back then, it was a Friday night, so obviously the taxi lines were very busy, and we had to wait 30 minutes until they arrived. So we thought, okay, we're just gonna grab a quick drink at a bar where we've never been before. And once we got to the bar table, we've been offered 2 cocktails basically right away from the bartender. And thinking that an official staff member wouldn't do any wrong, we accepted the drinks cautiously, but we drank it really quickly because we also knew that our taxis will arrive very soon. When we started to leave towards the exit door, 2 other bigger, bulkier guys started to follow us and tried to convince us to stay. And that was very, it just felt really strange. We still got out and we got into our cab. But once we did, we both ordered 2 different cabs. We both had an immediate blackout. And I don't remember how I got home or how I got out from the taxi. But without knowing what actually happened, me and my friend both buried this memory until I met Christina. I met Christina in 2017, where I was studying at ITP, Interactive Telecommunication Program in New York University. And I heard about her mission, her project, that she was shooting a traditional documentary film supported by Creative Europe and HBO about her personal experience with GHB. So what happened to Christina is that 10 years ago, she was at a club and someone spiked her drink. And then the next day she woke up at the police station, missing some of her clothes, and her body was bruised and she couldn't remember the past 10 hours. And as a documentary filmmaker by training, she thought it's really important that she start discovering what actually happened, but also what is GHB and how is it possible that people can access this substance, in some cases actually legally. So her story reawakened my own experience, and it really gave us a new mission that we wanted to create a virtuality experience, which is not just a raising awareness narrative project, but which also had a preventative and educational element to it. But really the main goal is still to save other partygoers from similar trauma. Briefly about GHB. So GHB is most commonly known in the US as liquid ecstasy, easy lay, and it's colorless, odorless. It causes blackouts, and the survivors lose control over their body and become completely defenseless. GHB is mostly used in sexual assault, or in some cases robbery, or even actually organ trafficking. And it's one of the most common causes of drug-related death. It's very difficult to trace because it leaves the body within hours. And the mortality rates following GHB use is also pretty high because there's a very narrow safety margin between the recreational dose and the fatal dose. In Europe, GHB has become a popular party drug in Germany due to a legal loophole. It's actually very easy to access it. And in the United States, in the 1990s, this was the most popular, but recently, as the new recreational users, the younger recreational users are accessing the internet, they can just purchase it through an online marketplace. You see now an image of a BDO cleaner product, which was available on Amazon and even on Walmart online marketplaces just 2 years ago still. And the problem with that is, yes, it's not GHB, but upon humans are digesting the body turns into GHB and have very similar clinical effects. But unlike GHB, both chemicals have widespread use in manufacturing. Therefore, it's really hard to prevent them. It's really hard to regulate, to do some kind of regulations around these substances. Christina already worked with a relatively famous psychologist called Philip Zimbardo, who have been researching the bystander effect for decades. And he's a social psychologist who stated that basically the bystander effect is that an individual's likelihood of helping decreases when other passive bystanders are present in an emergency situation. To simplify this, if you're in a party and someone feels unwell and maybe falls to the ground, if the other 40 people will do nothing about it, probably you won't do either. So this is probably the most important question, like why would you create a virtual reality experience or any kind of immersive experience, and by that reducing the accessibility to many people, right? You have to find good reasons for that. And we got this question a million times when we went to pitch events, when we went to mentorship programs, like why this story has to be told in VR. And we found several research showing that actually by using muscle memory in virtual reality in a fully simulated safe environment, if our users are practicing this courageous behavior once, like stopping people, using your voice in this virtual setting, these kind of actions can be replicated in real life more easily. And this is actually what our current research, what our ongoing research at Victoria University and between the Semmelweis University in Hungary, Budapest, is now investigating in a 4-year research. More on that later. Another reason for using VR is that we wanted to appeal to our target audience with the medium, but also with the visual style. And we identified that our target audience are basically 16 to 24-year-old partygoers who could be possible survivors of such events. So in the present version of the VR, because there were many versions before, several different prototypes, the visitor or the participant can explore a night similar to that of Christina from the bystander's perspective. So you enter VR, you represent yourself, and you are the bystander. You are part of a friend circle. Everybody's really friendly with you in the beginning. And after a while, after onboarding, you see this young man on the right side of the screen. He's called Greg. He's our main antagonist. But he's really friendly with you. He gives you a free ticket to enter the club. But eventually you find out that he also puts GHB into a drink that belongs to their common friend, a young woman called Mara, who you see on the left side. And since GHB makes it impossible for Mara to defend herself or even to ask for help, the only possibility is that you, as the user, as the bystander, will recognize that there's a situation where Mara needs your help. So when the story goes further, it's a 20-minute long piece with 4 different outcomes. So it varies between 16 to 20 minutes. And the bystander, the user gets a series of requests from Greg, such as, let's peek into the women's bathroom. or let's just destroy a beer bottle and let's just smash it into pieces, or let's just smash it onto the ground. But when the story goes further and further, the questions are more morally pressing and questionable. So there's a point when, for example, Mara feels really unwell, but Greg asks you to take a humiliating selfie while Mara is basically almost falls onto the ground. This is our story map, our simplified story map. The narrative is a little bit complicated, but you can see that there are 4 different outcomes when even the bystander can find themselves under arrest by the police. But if the bystander instead helps, Mara gets home safe and Greg gets arrested. Reaching the offboarding, which is still in virtual reality, so it's the virtual reality offboarding part when the experience ended. After seeing this map, you hear Mara, based on which ending you landed on, you can hear Mara talking about her perspective and how these different decisions affected her life long term. And this is very important because we want the bystander to realize how crucial it is to take action and to understand that these real life situations are very, very complex, and it really only takes just moments to make the wrong choices or just stay passive and don't do anything at all. I wanted to show a quick timeline because it all sounds amazing and fun and games, but there's a lot of work put into this project. And it started in 2017 when I met Christina, and then 2018, 2019, we started to run community engagement and story development workshops. We wanted to make sure that people coming from very different backgrounds, such as documentary filmmakers, designers, survivors of such events, can all understand the affordances of virtual reality, what is it capable of, and what are the ethical considerations when we're discussing such a sensitive topic. We also partnered up with psychologists because we found that their input would be very useful in terms of how to write our script, how to make the story impactful enough, but also we didn't want to trigger anyone. And that we also went to a lot of pitching events. I just collected a few if you're interested to submit your own projects. There's one in New York City, NYC Media Lab, CPH Dog in Copenhagen, Denmark, ITFA Doc Lab, amazing mentorship program they have in Amsterdam, and the Forum de New Images in France, Paris. So we participated all of these, and we received amazing input from the industry. In 2020, we got some budget secured, which we were very happy about, and we started pre-production. And obviously, as I said, it was really kind of slow process to get production budget approved for such an artistic and social experiment, what no one tried to do before. So to make sure that we are not spending all the budget secured on just pre-production, we decided to do a lot of gray boxing and different animatics, which are basically just 2D images next to each other to make sure that we have a nice flow of the narrative. We also had a few Lego workshops, so we were actually building out the space from little Lego cubes and little buildings before we started to do anything in Unreal Engine. And we run other paper prototypes as well. Sorry, I just lost my slides. All right. And we also created an early prototype version, which was multiplayer. So before the final setup where the user is the bystander, we had a version where you could either embody the survivor or embody the perpetrator. But running this prototype for more than 150 people, we came to a conclusion that it's highly problematic to force people to enter these roles, even if they were very interested in receiving a real-time motion track cocktail in real time in virtual reality, we decided that we're not gonna go further with this setup. Plus, COVID fully kind of eliminated the possibility to do this complex multiplayer setup. So we were focusing on an online available single user version of the piece, which is now the final one. But again, a little bit about pre-production, like we actually went back to the place where it happened to Christina, my friend I mentioned earlier. We were gathering images from the actual bar where it happened to her, and where also other survivors were contributing with sharing the location data of where it happened to them. And after the first experimentation in 2D, we started to play around with different shaders, different character designs in Unreal Engine. We also use Blender and different other DCC softwares to create some kind of, to explore what kind of aesthetic would fit the style we had in mind most, but also taking into consideration that the project had to run on a Quest 2 headset, and that comes with a lot of extra consideration when it comes to optimization. Altogether, we had 7 different environments, all in 2D first. We worked with an amazing concept artist, Fruzsina Kor. And then we worked on the character design, and we spent a lot of time on writing multidimensional characters. And we also wanted to avoid victim shaming. So actually, by running a few feedback sessions on these 2D character concepts, we realized that a lot of people were blaming Mara of wearing such short pair of pants. So we decided that we're gonna actually give her a longer, more baggy clothes, because we wanted to avoid this whole topic. The project is not about victim shaming at all. Okay, we had for character design different facial expression sheets for each character, and we finally reached production, where the very first initial phase of production was still some research on how we're gonna create this optimized visual aesthetic for the mobile. And we also explored budget-friendly solution when it comes to facial animation and lip sync for the characters. We used for the motion capture shoot, we used the latest Unreal Engine virtual production pipeline, where as a director, it was really useful for me that I could see real time the final characters in their final environment. And we also developed some new production tools, what reduced the workload and gave better results in terms of animation. We had to proportionately draw spaces for each environment, for each 7 environment on the ground. This was the kind of colorful tape you see. And this is the scene where Greg and Mara are waiting for their food in terms of in front of a food truck. And this is an image of how we have the real-time connection between the Xsense software and Unreal Engine back then 4.27. Let me show you a quick video of it.
And you wonder why you don't have a girlfriend. By the way, I feel a bit weird, and I've only had one drink.
Aren't you hungry? The others were looking for a bite. They might have left already. We can go after them if you want.
Yes, I'm in. And you are coming with us.
Whoopsie, don't forget this.
Oh, okay.
So, what's it gonna be?
In 2022 November, we finally had our premiere at the International Documentary Film Amsterdam, and then we started to focus on our reach out, because next to obviously film festivals who opened up their VR sections recently, our most important pillar was still education. So we tried to find different innovation centers or museums who were running like thematic workshops or exhibitions for youth, for this age group. And we were lucky enough that we could partner up with an amazing production company called Electric Skies in the UK. So right now we have a campus tour running in the UK and Hungary, and hopefully we're gonna have after our initial results in terms of our research around this around Missington Hours, which is running at Victoria University of Wellington at the moment. We're gonna have hopefully a campus tour around New Zealand as well for Week Zero students. Hopefully, I think next year. That would be pretty ideal. So just to mention, so Story Futures is the one who connected us. Sorry, Electric Skies connected us with Story Futures, and Story Futures is the National Centre for Immersive Storytelling in the UK, and they arranging this amazing campus tour between 40 plus institutions around the UK. And you can always apply with the project and be part of the selection. It runs every year. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity if your project is already complete. And there's also online distribution partners, Unframed Collection, Astra Immersive, and many more, who can help you when it comes to releasing your project in different online platforms. This is a few pictures from our previous installation, where we also printed out some beer mats, and we also rebranded some beer bottles to make sure that people can scan the QR code and then find more information about drink spiking and the bystander effect on our website. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but you really have to think of why your project needs to be in virtual reality, other than it's going to create a more immersive experience. This is not enough. You're making your project a bit too hard to access. If you do it in VR, it's still not so many people have their own VR headsets. A lot of institutions are now investing in buying it for their students, which is amazing. And now that the Apple Vision Pro came out recently, there's definitely an upcoming trend in terms of buying your own personal VR headsets, or more like mixed reality headsets. But right now we are thinking of a more accessible web VR version. And it's not such a complicated process, as Unreal Engine 5 has this multi-output possibility, which is amazing, because once you have everything there, all the assets, all the animations, it depends on you whether you want to output a VR experience, you want to create maybe an AR version of it, an augmented reality version of it, whether you want to have a 180 projection mapping, or a linear animation. It's really up to you. And currently we're discussing with the Deep Space, which is an amazing 8K projection room in Linz, Austria, Ars Electronica, our collaboration, where we would like to research the bystander effect within this space. So in our project, how it would look like is that whether there's a decision point in the Missington Hours narrative, a yes or no circle would be projected at the floor where you see now the sun. And based on how many people go into those circles, the story could go this or that way, depending on where, the more people in the yes circle, then it would go that way. So it would be a very interesting experiment to also videograph the whole experience, when people decide to do certain actions, and how the bystander effect is influencing their decisions. Again, from the web, apart from the web VR version, we are also preparing a teaching aid kit for educators who would like to introduce the topic of bullying and bystander effect and safeguarding in the classroom, but they not necessarily have the knowledge on how to use virtual reality or how to bring up such sensitive topics. So again, we partnered up with educational psychologists and social psychologists to create this kit, what will be freely available on our website, hopefully not later than this time next year. I mentioned the research already. So we have 2 researches going on at the moment, one in Hungary, Budapest, where the project started with the documentary filmmakers group and where I'm originally from, and also one in New Zealand as part of the Victoria University. And our aim during this 4-year research period is to assess the efficacy of the VR intervention by comparing it to other visual-based preventative programs, such as the gold standard Bystander video, what is used in high schools at the moment around New Zealand, or comparing it to an interactive text-based experience, which is basically the script of Missing 10 Hours. But we are interested how this immersive environment we created and the narrative we created, this full interactive narrative we created, influences the long-term impact on our users, and whether by trying the VR would actually raise the possibility that they would help in a real-life situation if someone is in need. We're still looking for partners, local partners in New Zealand, as I arrived not longer than 1 year and 4 months ago to this country. So if you are feeling that you would like to join us, or you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We just heard back from our distributors that finally the piece will be available on both AppLab and also the Pico platforms. So if you would like to give it a go, now you can Google that. And as a last little section, so I wanted to just quickly mention a few AI tools what we have been experimenting with to reduce the production cost. And I think if you're a smaller studio or you just recently graduated, you might benefit from trying out some of these, because the cost of motion editing can be really, really high. And especially if you are working with a lot of characters, as we did, like with 9 characters altogether, these AI tools can be really helpful. It's not going to really replace the manual work, but that can be quite nice to experiment with, especially if you are maybe working on a prototype and you just want to give it a go. So there was a revolution in terms of how we animate physics-based cloth or fluid and etc. But animating characters still remains a manual and tedious process. However, NVIDIA have been putting quite an extensive research into AI-driven physics-based character animations, as you can see on this slide. So this is a new territory where they're training the character on realistic human motion data to give more lifelike results. And basically this NVIDIA new model allows for the character to react on a situation. So for example, if you throw a little cube at it, it will react to it. But you can also use natural language commands, so you can actually prompt the character to do a certain movement. There's also, I know motion capture technology can be quite expensive and it's not available for everyone. So for those situations, I would highly recommend using this video footage-based motion capture tools such as the Plask or the Rococo, where you can create 3D skeletal animations from uploading a video footage. But there are also open source tools using machine learning models such as OpenPose or MoCapNet. Hey. And I linked the video into the presentation, so if you are interested, I recommend watching it. And lastly, we use now an AI plugin using Solid Diffusion and ControlNet and the OpenPose editor extension in Unreal Engine. This is created by an amazing colleague of mine, Byron Mallet. And basically what you can do is that you pose your character, the simple Unreal Engine Mane character, in an empty level, but by prompting on top of it, you can create these amazing images. and you can also animate it. So you can use the same prompt and create a 20-second animation of it, which I find quite fascinating. Lastly, I think there's definitely a trend in using generative AI, and we see it in a lot of works when, emerging applications like Stable Diffusion or DALL-E or Midjourney or ChatGPT is used, and therefore there's an intensive discussion on the actual significance of AI in enabling new forms of animation. But I think when it comes to critique, like educators or so like when it comes to critiquing artwork created by our students as educators, it's really the question of whether these works have been produced by solely on AI, or there was also some kind of further editing and further modifying of these outputs involved in the creation process to contribute to the bigger idea. And I've just came back from an intensive session with 4 other jury members for Ars Electronica new animation art category. Had to look through 899 projects together, and we've seen a lot of experimentations using AI, but it also felt that the concept was described later, but the experimentation happened a little bit earlier. So again, AI is amazing, and you can create beautiful imagery with it, a beautiful eye candy video with it. But again, if it's not part of like a bigger concept or like your experimentations before you start using AI, I think people will notice it when they're critiquing it. But what was another trend what we can see now is that more and more smaller production companies, people who didn't have access people who didn't have opportunity to create high quality CGI animated short films can now use Unity on Unreal Engine to tell their own stories. And I think it's fascinating to see that more underrepresented communities are now using this technology. And with my amazing friend who was a former lecturer from Massey called Maddie King, we are currently building workshop series within we would like to teach mostly younger women on how to use these tools, and we are very interested in their stories. So if you are maybe following us on Instagram by hashtagging by looking for RUMEXR, we're gonna definitely share more info on that. We are currently trying to find support for these workshops, and they're gonna be freely available. So hopefully that's also a project for the second part of this year. And thank you very much for listening. And again, I know that it can be very intimidating if you're starting out as a new emerging digital artist. And if you have any questions about VR, about the festivals we participated in, or what kind of fundings are available, please reach out to me on using info@rumexr.com. Probably that's the easiest, and I'm very happy to give you an idea of what's realistic within the current climate. Thank you.